I'm afraid of her leaving me. This was a statement that a friend of mine made a comment about as he was discussing with me in the midst of conversation, really unpacking some of the relationship struggles and conflict he was recently having. In the midst of the conversation, he began to talk a lot about this girl being the best thing that had ever happened to him, and a thought that he had in the midst of the relationship that's crept in from time to time that he's been afraid to address, considering the possibility of her not being in his life at some point. I shared with him, I said, man, when as kids, there was times when we would be excited about getting a balloon for whatever occasion. When you grab a balloon, there's a couple things that typically happens. Obviously, one, you want to hold on tight enough to it to where it doesn't leave you and you don't let it go. However, there can be a perspective, especially as a kid, where you get so excited about having the balloon that you squeeze it. And in the midst of squeezing that balloon, it pops. You know what's so interesting about a lot of us who have dealt with anxious attachment wounds is that we tend to squeeze. We tend to squeeze and cling so much to relationships and people in our lives out of fear of abandonment, out of fear of being left, out of fear of feeling as if when somebody leaves, we now believe that we are not good enough as people. And so our response in the midst of the anxiety is to think that by clinging, we are actually preserving a relationship, when in reality, sometimes through the clinging, oftentimes through the clinging, we are actually overwhelming and squeezing the life out of the relationship itself. 3 ways that you can identify in knowing whether or not you are anxiously attached is, one, that you can't relax. You're always tense, you're always on 10, you're always alert, and never able to rest in peace, which then leads to the second way, which is dealing with constant overwhelming thoughts, overanalyzing thoughts, and not being able to really get into a place of stability in your thinking about the direction of the relationship and what it is, which then thirdly leads to behaviors that begin to be exhibited. You are not able to, be at peace with this person if they're out of your presence, constantly checking your phone 24/7. The stories that come up in your mind that you begin to believe and buy into as it relates to the relationship and the person and what they are or are not doing when they're not texting you back fast enough, calling you back fast enough, or are around you 24/7. Eventually, especially when it comes to having a good relationship with people who may be a little bit more secure than we are, as we end up squeezing the life out of that relationship, ruining a good thing, or in some cases, not putting ourselves in the best position to continue building on something that has the potential to be good, both people willing to put in the honest work to do so. I think it's really important when it comes to doing relationships in a healthy way that we are honest enough to recognize when we are the ones who are putting people above pedestals, idolizing relationships, idolizing people, or putting ourselves in a position where we are willing to cling on to this person or to a relationship or a desired outcome, so much so that we are willing to chase and abandon and perform for love that we were designed with and that we already have before the relationship became what we ultimately hope for. And when we find ourselves in these places of performing for love and moving from a place of anxiousness and not from a place of peace, we are in greater danger of losing relationships than we are of cultivating healthier ones. In order to be able to love with an open hand and not be afraid of people walking out of your life as well as they walked into your life, is the ability to love who you are and love who God made you enough to be willing to let people walk out of your life if they so choose, because it doesn't have to be taken so personal to the point of believing that you are in the wrong or you are not good enough because somebody did not see the value you carried. And it's so important that as we're really building more and more of a secure attachment and really growing into a place of not needing to be codependent on other people in order to survive, not only we love ourselves as God loves us, as Christ loves us, but we love ourselves enough. We remind ourselves of the gifts and talents that we carry. We are willingly nurturing our emotional needs and giving to ourselves what we are desperately waiting on other people to give to us in order to show up authentically in the relationships that we have and reach the greatest form of love, which actually produces peace, the ability to love with an open hand, where we don't cling and we don't white knuckle, but we give people the opportunity to choose us as we're choosing them, and being able to live in a greater peace instead of squeezing the life out of relationships and out of people due to fears that we're avoiding that need to be addressed. And with relaxation, curiosity, comparing thoughts in our minds to truth and reality, being present in the moment, and loving ourselves the way God loves us, to not be willing to constantly chase after people who are slowly walking out of our lives, is what gives us the capacity to love at greater levels and actually find the peace that we think holding on and white knuckling to people is giving us. I hope this made sense. If it did, type "caught it" in the comment section below and follow for more as we continue navigating through our healing and doing relationships the right way. We're starting with us doing the healing work on ourselves first, which oftentimes looks like us addressing some of those anxious attachment wounds in efforts of us actually achieving the real peace we're looking for, that we think is found in white knuckling relationships around us, but is really found in living with an open hand, addressing the fears we have curated about what we believe is being said about us if someone leaves, so that way we can get our peace back.